I'm starstruck.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're live. Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just so excited.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. I'm a little bit, I'll just breathe. So, no, this is my first YouTube collaboration, I should say, and so it's all new territory for me. YouTube, I've only been on for a year, so once again, it's just amazing what we can do with the technology that we have available today. But it's what we can learn, and I find that watching fellow YouTubers, especially those that are aligned with astrology, has been a wonderful learning curve, and so that's what I was hoping that we could talk to you about tonight, about your experiences with astrology and how that's helped you and how it helps our people.
Great.
Yes.
It does help a lot. I love astrology, and that's why I do it, because I think it is really, really helpful.
Yes.
Emma, over to you.
Well, I'd love to know how you got into astrology and tarot in the first place. What drew you to it?
I discovered a deck of cards at my grandmother's when I was, I think, 10 or 12 or something, and I really instantly loved them. And I just continued to work with them, and the tarot actually led me to astrology, because a lot of the symbols in tarot have to do with astrology. Obviously, you've got the moon, you've got the sun, but then also the different cards like the chariot, they have different kind of symbolism, and each of the cards can have a further meaning in astrology, and that's what kind of led me onto it. It also led me onto numerology, and I think astrology is really the king of all the divination tools. And once I got into it, I was overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that I had to learn, because it's a huge topic, and it took me years to really get to a place where I felt confident reading a chart. But it's been super worth it. I'd recommend anyone to study it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you do natal charts, Greg?
Say again?
So do you prepare natal charts for people?
I do, yes, I do.
And how long has it actually taken you to get this knowledge? Like 15, 20 years, work in progress?
Oh, no. I'm not that old. It took me about, I think, two years of serious study.
Okay.
To really have a firm grip on it. And also, I mean, I'm Virgo like you, because so Virgos are pretty responsible when they work with other people, and I really didn't want to be in a position where I'm reading something and I'm not sure about what I'm talking about. So I gave myself that extra time to be really, really clear on it, and I started practicing with you know, friends and family and things like that, and then I started to do it professionally.
Well, I'm actually a double Pisces. I've got a Pisces sun and also ascendant, but I must have a little bit of Virgo in me, because I have this perfection gene.
Right.
In control.
Yep. That's Virgo. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm actually surrounded by a lot of Virgos, so I'm thinking, oh, something, they can teach me something.
Yes.
So we've recently started an online community, and I've asked the members there if they had a question that we could ask you. And Anna asked me, are you seeing that a lot of people are coming out of the spiritual closet, so to speak, at this point in time? Do you think there's an increase in spiritual awareness and interest in astrology?
Yeah, I really do, because I think the internet has been really helpful in that. I mean, you know, in the 90s and things like that, astrology was kind of big. If you went to bookshops and if you went to kind of New Age fairs, those things were starting. But still, the mainstream media, like the main television things, they don't take astrology and these kind of things. They don't say that's something worthwhile. You know, so that's the kind of opinion of Rupert Murdoch or whatever, and that's what the rest of us get. So with the internet, we're able to actually pick and choose what we like, and astrology has become hugely popular with things like YouTube and just with the internet in general. And I think because people see other people's interests and they're encouraged by this sense of community, it gives them the courage to kind of come out of the spiritual closet and to say, hey, I believe all of this too. And also, you know, at the same time with things like yoga and things being so socially acceptable now, I think it's much, much easier.
Yes.
And the other thing is that astrology has been around a long time, and it's far less, scary than things like the tarot, which people have been, especially from a Christian background, have been trained to kind of fear and all of that stuff. So it's something that's almost respectable, and I think that's why people don't struggle kind of coming to it so much.
Yeah, I've been fascinated with astrology since, I don't know, I was born with this fascination, and I remember as a child, getting the Sunday paper and reading my star signs, and it's just like intrinsic within me. I just love it, and every month now, as soon as the month rolls around, I look at the astrologers and listen to the forecasts, and it's amazing.
It is.
Amazing. Yes.
And you've got a pick of so many people now. You can check how different people interpret it, especially on YouTube. It's fun with the eclipses that were happening recently.
Yes.
At the end of last month and now in the beginning of April.
Yes.
It's the same thing happening, but everyone's got a different take on it, and that's really interesting.
It is really interesting, isn't it? Got a totally different.
I'm sorry.
Oh, and the other thing I just wanted to mention, I learned how to do the charts by hand. So you draw the charts, and that takes a while. You have to work everything out by hand in a calculator and things. And it's nice to draw it, but I mean, these days, again, with the software, it takes me like a minute to enter the details and to get the chart. And also, it's not just that it's easy and easily accessible, but I can look up other charts at the drop of a hat. I look at the progress chart. So that's when I take the person's natal chart and I speed it up 1 degree for every year that's passed. So if they're 33 years old, I up it by 33 degrees. Then I can add the transits around, so what's happening in the heavens right now, how that's affecting the natal chart and the progress chart, and then I can do the solar return chart, which is like a birthday chart for the upcoming year, and all of that takes me, it's a matter of clicks. So when I used to do it, it used to be much more labored, and now I can just zip around all the different charts, and it's great.
Wow.
That's a good point, because I've looked at my natal chart and it doesn't really mean a lot to me. And what does it mean when things are sextile and they're conjunct, and what was the other term that I was looking at? I'm thinking there's so much detail in there. What should we be looking at if we actually went online and just worked out our own little chart?
That's just one aspect of the chart. Conjunctions and sextiles and things are something called aspects. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the planets interact with each other.
Okay.
So if it's a square, it'll show up as a red line, and that means that one planet is 90 degrees away from another planet, and that's why it creates a certain aspect. So it's just a 90-degree difference. A sextile will be 60 degrees. A conjunction will mean they're right on top of each other. They're 1 degree apart. It depends on how much you allow. But it just means they interact. So a conjunction means that those two blend their energies. So if you've got the Sun and Mercury conjunct, it means they're together, and it means that, well, Mercury is a bad example actually because that's special, but it means that they blend their energies. So the ego would be very communicative in that person. If it's a square, let's say you have a square Sun and Neptune, it means that there's a real sense of friction and motivation and kind of butting of heads between Neptune and the Sun, and that would kind of mean that the person finds it easy to become a chameleon and to take on the personality traits of another person and to not stand up for themselves and all of that stuff. So each conjunction is, or each aspect is quite significant, but it's just one aspect of what you look at. The first thing you look at, do you want to hear what to look at? Or is that...
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you're going to something like astrodienst.com or astrotheme.com, where you can just put in your birth details and you get your charts. It's really easy and wonderful. The first thing I would look at is the planets, what the planets are doing. Then I would look at what sign they're in. So is my Sun in Virgo? Is my Mercury in Gemini? Is my Saturn in Taurus? Mm-hmm. Then I would look at what houses that's in. So is it house 1 through 12? Because you have 12 houses in a chart on that big wheel.
Yes.
And the reason I would look at it that way is the planet is what the energy is. The sign is how that energy is expressed. And the house is what area of life that energy is expressed. So I've got Virgo in the 6th house. I've got the Sun in Virgo in the 6th house. That means my ego is really pleased by kind of order and by being diligent and by working and by having kind of a sense of structure in my life. And because it's in my 6th house, that will be most strongly expressed in the home and in my work, and I will try and transform my life through applying myself and through being really diligent. So you can see that you get a lot of information just from one planet. Then when you connect them all up, you can just talk for 12 hours. So you've got to try and keep it brief as well. Yeah.
Okay, at the end of this interview, I'll ask you to leave a link so that people can book a chart reading with you, and I'll definitely go ahead and get that done. I'd be fascinated to hear what my profile is. But one question that has been asked of me: what if you don't know the time of your birth?
That's it's good to have the time of your birth, because the time of birth gives me a snapshot of your chart exactly in the moment when you were born. So exactly what was happening. And what it's really, really important for is the rising sign. Okay. The rising sign is what's coming up over the horizon at the moment you were born. And that's kind of important because it's almost like a ta-da moment. This is what you're looking at when you were born. So if you don't have the time of birth, it's okay. I don't get the rising sign, but pretty much all the planets are the same. So I can still do your chart, and there's a process called rectification, in which the astrologer actually finds out your time of birth by looking at certain things in the chart. So if you tell me something like, on the 5th of October 1985 you were married, and then in 93 you had your first child, I can look at the events on your chart, and I can actually pinpoint when you were born and which rising sign is most appropriate for you.
That's really good, because I was born on the back seat of a car, so my arrival time is an estimate.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So I was in a bit of a hurry. And yeah, it has been a theme.
Wow. Has that been a theme in your life then?
Yes. Apparently I was late, but then when I decided it was time to come, I came. So very impulsive, that seems to be a very good trait of mine. Procrastination, and bang, off I go. Now, Emma had a question about the North Node.
Yes, I was interested to know what the significance of the North Node is, because I just got a new book and it's all about the North Node. So I thought, is that something that's really significant on our life journey, or?
Yeah, I mean, I make a lot of notes of it, but obviously, if you're reading a whole book on it, you'll see that there's a lot of different aspects to it. The things I look at that I find most important, if you the Earth, it kind of moves on this path, okay? And so does the Moon. And when they intersect their paths, there's a North Node and a South Node. If you look at a diagram of it, you'll understand it. But it's just when they intersect their paths.
Okay.
And, yeah. So that you've got a North Node and a South Node, and basically. And in Vedic astrology, this is really important too. They see that almost as a planet because it's so significant, and they have a whole myth around it. But myself in Western astrology, we usually look at, or I particularly look at it as, the North Node of the Moon is what you're striving towards on a soul level and what you're trying to achieve. And the South Node is where you come from, what feels comfortable already, and what you're building on. And it's kind of some people who are really woo-woo and new agey and into the past life phenomenon, which I personally believe in, kind of link that with it and look at where you've come from. So, for instance, my South Node of the Moon is in Aquarius, which rules astrology. So I personally feel that I have had a link to astrology in a past life. And then my North Node is something completely different, and that's what I'm striving towards.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, that's the main thing I look at when I see it.
Yeah, very. So I think mine, Mary Lane's was Libra and mine was Gemini. So.
Your north node is Gemini and your south
My
is...
node is Gemini. I'm not sure what my south node is. I haven't got that
Your
far
north
yet.
node is... Do you know what house it's in?
No.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, your north node is in Gemini. It means that part of your mission here is to communicate more and to engage with information more, to look at things from a more kind of balanced and fair-minded perspective, and to weigh up all your options. Gemini isn't very discerning. It just likes to find things out and it's curious. So for you, it's important to get curious and to remain curious. Now, let's say that that north node is in your third house. That would be in the house of communication, and that would mean that you should work with that explicitly. Like you should possibly look at working with information, or working online, or doing some research. If it's in the, let's say, in the 10th house, then it would be a kind of prompt for you to become more communicative and open-minded and kind of more curious about information in the area of your career.
Okay.
So find out where it is. That's important.
Okay. I have to find that out. But the first one sounded very accurate, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's spot on.
Okay. Now, the other thing about that is I mentioned Vedic astrology recently, and I mean previously, and Vedic astrology looks at that very, very significantly, but it kind of it shifts the perspective of it as being malefic. It looks as having a negative influence or a negative connotation, and really in Western, I don't think we do that. We look at it more of a searching, a journey, something that you can draw on with the South Node, and it doesn't have the negative connotations that it does in Vedic.
Yeah. Very cool.
Now, something else that captures a lot of my attention here during my work week is Mercury retrograde, and I believe there's another one coming up, and that's a topic of interest too. I believe it happens 3 times a year.
Yeah, it does. I think it can happen 3 to 4 times a year, and it's a real pain.
Yes. So under a retrograde, Mercury retrograde, that's when, you know, your emails may go astray or miscommunications occur. What do you think is the significance of this? Is this the creator who likes to just stir the pot and create a little bit of contrast for us all, so that we can start asking for solutions?
Oh, but did you say the creator?
Yes, yeah.
Because what you're doing is what you've just done there is something really interesting. You've assumed that God is using the planets to influence us. You've added a religious connotation to it, which is really interesting.
I'm not so much a religious person, but I do believe in a greater energy, Greg.
Okay, so, but what you're saying is that the greater energy steers these planets to impact us, right?
Yes, yes. So is that?
That's a unique perspective on it.
Okay.
And there's a whole school of thought around this.
Yes.
You know, does God do all? Does the universe, the creator, influence us, or does he use the planets to steer our bodies and all of this thing? It's that opens a whole thing. It's super interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more, because that was one of the questions from the community, and that was just a belief of mine, because I like to share my opinion with my co-workers, and when this comes around, I just think, well, you know, it's about contrast, and, you know, it helps us with our desires, and maybe if we didn't have this contrast, then there'd be no universal expansion. That's how I interpret some of these events.
I think if you're talking to colleagues about it, I think short answers are really important, because they usually make coffee and have cake and stuff like that. So, so in the olden days, you know, they used to really persecute people for having kind of occult beliefs and things. And the way they justified astrology was to say that God rules the spirit and astrology rules the body.
Right.
And that's why they said it was okay, because we're made of water. We have 40% water in our bodies, and we can all see what happens to the ocean when the moon goes full and when it goes new. So that makes sense. All the other planets have impacts on our bodies as well. So I don't think anyone questions that, and that's really my perspective of it. That astrology rules our physical selves, and that then has an impact on the way we feel on a soul level.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
And it's also, again, with the whole theology side of things, astrology occupies a really nice space because if you go to the East, they believe that everything's written, you've got your destiny, there's not much you can do about it. You're put on this earth, certain things are going to happen, and that's it. It's written. So, deal with it. But in the West, we kind of believe that thoughts create reality, I think, especially in the New Age community, or even not in the New Age community. We believe that if you go to university, and if you work really hard, and if you apply yourself and you get the right job, you can be happy, and you can achieve the American dream or the European dream or whatever it is, and you can make your life the way you want to make it. Now, astrology sits nicely in the middle of that because it says, there are influences that are going to impact you regardless of what you're doing. And then also it says that by understanding these, you can shape your life the way you want to shape it. So it kind of occupies that middle road between the two beliefs, and that's what I think makes it so useful. It gives us a sense of acceptance, and it gives us a sense of I can do something about it, I can change what I want to. Isn't that great? I mean, I think that's great. Because
absolutely.
It gives you a sense of empowerment.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think the initial question was Mercury retrograde, right? Sorry, I've gone off.
No, that's good.
Yeah, sorry. Mercury retrograde happens, like I said, and Mercury rules Gemini, and it rules, so that's yours, Emma, and it rules Virgo, the two communication planets. So they are impacted by it the most, I feel. So when it goes retrograde, it doesn't mean that it goes backwards. But for instance, I've made a video on this on my YouTube channel, so have a look at that. It's called What is Mercury retrograde? But it's basically when two cars are driving on the highway, and one overtakes the other. There's a moment when they seem to be standing still. They're both driving 70 miles an hour, but they seem to be standing still because they're completely like that. And then one of them moves forward, and the other one seems to be going back, but it's still going forward. It just looks that way from the other person's perspective. And that's what happens with Mercury. It seems to be going backward. When that happens, communication does become more labored, and you mentioned the phones and the emails and stuff. That hasn't been it has been my experience, but I mean, let's get real. Computers break down all the time, whether it's Mercury or not. What I found is that I have to figure out a different way of speaking. People often misunderstand me more than usual. So if I say something I think it's really clear, people are like, "What are you talking about?" And it's like, "Oh, I thought that was self-evident." So I don't know if it's me that kind of becomes fuzzy in the way I speak, or it's other people picking up on it, but that's how it impacts me personally.
Yeah.
Yes, I have had that experience, particularly the one that happened in January, February, but I did notice that there was it was more email for me in this particular past retrograde. It was anyway. So that's interesting.
There's another couple of questions. Kind of covered it in what we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Sue was just asking if you'd noticed a shift in consciousness lately, and can that be seen in the planetary alignments? But you did cover that a little bit before. Yeah,
and I think the biggest shift happened in 2012.
Yeah.
And that's been ongoing, and I think, it seems so far away already, but wow. 2012, I think, with the whole end of days thing, it was really, end of the world. People thought the world was going to end. And I think that really provided a big kind of shift in terms of the consciousness, in terms of we're still here. And what surprised me about that, there was a lot of depression about us still being here. A lot of people wanted it to end.
Yes.
Because life here is so hard and da-da-da-da-da. And I think people just kind of said, well, we're here for the long haul and we're going to have to get on with it. That was a really nice practical shift, I think. And now we've got all of these eclipses happening. And I did also make a video about that, the blood moons. And in terms of Kabbalistic theology, they kind of think that's the end. It signals the end. I mean, people always think it signals the end because I think on some level people want it to end.
Mm.
You know, I really do, because life on Earth can be very hard. So I think the shift has been into people becoming more practical, embracing their circumstances more, and I think also just you know, they always talk about the veil being lifted, and I know that sounds very, you know, I wouldn't tell whatever. But I really do think that's the case, because it's easier to connect and it's easier to get information through. And I think a lot of people do that. And even in the mainstream media, the word intuitive has become so popular because people realize that what you feel is kind of important.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, that wasn't a very good answer, but that's how I think it's shifted.
And the other question I had was, there any other significant planetary alignments that are coming up this year that we can expect?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the most important things at the moment to focus on, I mean, there are some things coming up, but the most important things I would like to focus on are the 2 eclipses that have just happened. Because the effects of those eclipses can be felt for 6 months to a year, and I think rather than move on from one thing to the next thing, I think it's really important to remember what those are telling us. And the big solar eclipse that happened, I don't think you had it in Australia, but here in Europe, we really were able to see it very well. And that's a really powerful eclipse, and it's about letting go of the old and embracing change and taking responsibility for your life and saying, I can make my life the way I want it to be. And I've spoken personally to so many more people who are honest about where they are for the first time. People who work jobs like call centers and who work in, you know, accountants, but they really see themselves as artists. Those kind of people, where in the past they would have stayed in denial and said, listen, I've got 2 kids, I need to do this job even though I hate it, and that's the end of it. They're now saying, I really am not happy in this work, and I want my life to be a reflection of who I am, and I want to do something that's meaningful and that I genuinely enjoy. I think people have always had that urge and that desire, but I think it's much stronger now and people are able to connect with it more. So that's what this eclipse is about, and that's what 2015 is about, which reduces to the number 8. 2 and 1 is 3, plus 5 is 8. And that's about taking responsibility for your own life. It's really tough, but it's really meaningful and worthwhile.
It's interesting how you chose an accountant who wanted to be an artist, because that's exactly who I am. I'm an accountant by day, and let me share with you something that I've recently discovered. Drawing Zentangles, and it's just so... Actually, that's a gift for you, Greg, for talking with us this evening, and I'd like to ship that over to you. But
oh, thank you. That'd be amazing. Thank you.
I was going to ask you about this because this is just so unusual. I've never had an artistic bone in my body, and 4 months ago I picked up a pen and I started to do a mandala. I'm getting goosebumps now.
Wow. Yeah.
And they just keep pouring out of me now. Every day I draw more. As you can see, I've got some pictures around. And I'm just wondering, where is this coming from? It's just so bizarre.
Yeah, but if you're drawing mandalas, you're opening your third eye.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Because a mandala is a focus. It's like a door between here and the other place.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I mean, this is my take on it. I'm sure someone else would, like a Buddhist, would have a different take on it. But my take on it is that your intuitive abilities are opening, and they're saying, listen, you know, listen to me, wake up, you know, we're opening up here, pay attention.
Okay.
And you're moving through to the other side. So you're gathering your energy by doing that.
Excellent. Because I sit here every night and I spend hours, and it's just it's a beautiful thing to do. I love the creation.
So I think more will be revealed then to you.
And that's very interesting because I see there's always a little hidden message within these drawings after I finish. I don't set out to draw them that way, but there's always something symbolic in there at the end of it.
Wow. That's interesting. That's great, isn't it? Wow.
It is. And what are your take on crystals? We have a young gentleman, Ben, in our little community, and he's an old soul in this very young body, and his knowledge about crystals is phenomenal. And I'm thinking, was he born with this? And do you have much experience with crystals?
I love crystals. I've got this one right on my desk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a massive one.
I always have crystals around me because they amplify everything.
I've got one
Yes.
too.
Oh.
Is it great?
Here's my beautiful
Well,
amethyst.
What's that? A little figurine?
Yes, I bought this in Cairns many years ago. So it's a little man sitting on top of a an amethyst.
Oh, cute.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the answer. The fact that all three of us have them right by us means that we feel them. I mean, I feel very comforted by them, and I feel they amplify everything around me. And I think each one of them has a little bit of a presence, you know. So I'm no expert. I don't say that Sodalite is to be used at 3 in the morning to heal the eczema or whatever. But I just have them around me because they feel good.
Yeah.
And they help me, I think. So yes, that's all I know. I love
okay.
them.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm drawn to amethyst. I have it everywhere.
Well, amethyst is the psychic one, isn't it?
Yes, it's the crown chakra. It's not opening up. My understanding.
Okay. Well, you've got quite a lot of messages. You've got the mandalas going on. You've got the amethyst that you're drawn to. I mean, I think you're in the process of really something, and it's like a muscle. The more you use it,
Yes.
the more it opens up anyway. So just keep going. You're on the right track.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But the drawing is the one that's taken me by surprise the most. You know,
That's amazing. If you never felt artistic and now you're drawing out of the blue.
It
That's
started on the 7th of December last year. I remember the day well. I'll never forget it. And I couldn't draw stick figures before. And I'm thinking, where has this come from? I'm not arguing with it. I'm quite delighted, but
Wow.
I woke up a different person.
Great.
Yes, my next challenge is a Metatron cube. I'm going to have it. You know, the circles with it's a geometrical design, so I'm going to have a go at drawing one of those.
Oh wow.
So let's see where that takes me.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you enough, Greg, for sharing this time with us this evening. It's just been awesome, absolutely awesome.
Thanks for having me. If people want to get in touch with me,
yes.
I've got a website. It's gregoryscott.com.
Yes.
And they can find out about what I do on there. And also, obviously, the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/tarot astrology, or just type in Gregory Scott Tarot or astrology, and you can find me.
And what I'll do is once we upload this video, I'll make sure that there's links there so that people can just click on it and go straight to you.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
Yes, yes, and I will message you so that I can get an address to ship that picture to you. Very excited to.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Share some of my work, my art with you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet both of you. Have a great evening.
Yes, and I look forward to getting a reading from you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Get into it. Brilliant. Good. All the best. Bye.
Bye.